member
Thank
for
you, Mr. Speaker.
Vieux South.
Thank you for your indulgence. Mr. Speaker, I attempted since receiving this resolution to search in my historical memory whether there's been any time during the period that I served as Minister of Finance that First National Bank has loaned St. Lucia as much as $32 million in one sitting. What's that? Earlier this year there was 25 million, yeah. So my point resonates. 32, of course, is 7 million more than the 25. Now, inevitably, this has to bring into focus the bank itself. And as you know, this bank is owned by the citizens of St. Lucia, persons who have shares in it. And the bank has a responsibility to them to make sure that whatever agreements they enter into by way of investment, that the benefits of that ultimately accrues to the shareholders of the bank and those, of course, who utilize the services of the bank. Of course, this also applies to whatever risks that are involved in making such loans available. I do recall, though, Mr. Speaker, that the First National Bank went through an exceedingly painful and difficult period some years ago. In the middle of the financial and economic crisis, when there were a lot of fears regarding the banking sector, not just in St. Lucia, but in the region as a whole. And the bank had to enter into an agreement with the Central Bank of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank to put its house in order. It is, of course, to the credit of the bank that they were able to follow the directions of the Central Bank, implement the points identified by the Central Bank in whatever agreement between the bank and the Central Bank, and they gradually emerged out of the difficulties that they experienced. Since then, of course, we have seen a bank that has become even more assertive and making its presence felt in the marketplace. So on the one hand, we are seeing a substantial loan by the bank at a very generous rate of interest of 6%. And that perhaps, to use the favorite word of my friends on the other side, that perhaps reflects the confidence of the times, that they can make that kind of judgment, they can make that kind of investment. But, Mr. Speaker, there are a couple issues. First of all, the money is supposed to be for capital expenditure. And I have over the years, because of all circumstances, observed resolutions coming under the Finance Administration Act. And I recall my old time when I was pilloried for the famous Rochamel case. And everybody will remember that legislation came to Parliament to amend the Finance Administration Act, and by implication, resolutions. And you know, Mr. Speaker, after all of this, it's the same identical, this resolution would be the same identical resolution 10, 15 years ago. That's just really an indication of how much of a legal and constitutional fast that we have been engaged in. But that's not my point. My point is that perhaps the very unfortunate thing is that we have not taken the opportunity for genuine reform of these instruments. And if you look at, and that's why the preambular clauses are important, Mr. Speaker, and why you need them in the record. It says in the third preambular clause, First National Bank St.Lucia Limited for capital expenditure. But in the statement by the Minister of Finance, We have absolutely no idea what is the capital expenditure that is involved. Absolutely none. He may have been generous with other statements, and I shall come to that, the one for $3 million in a few minutes, and provided some background, but I have some comments in a few minutes. But Mr. Speaker, what is the capital expenditure involved here? Should I really reply to him? Mr. Speaker, should I really reply to him? Appropriation bill? I'll let you off this time. Now, that being said, Mr. Speaker, so we have a situation where absolutely no information is provided on the capital expenditure. Now, Mr. Speaker, what is interesting today is that we have the two resolutions. We just approved one for $3.3 million at a rate of interest of 4.5. I must say this is extraordinarily genuine, extraordinarily generous. And whoever negotiated an interest rate of 4.5 on 3.3 million of money held by the savings of the people of St. Lucia, they have to be commended for succeeding on behalf of the government of St. Lucia of only paying 4.5%, albeit it is for 12 months. But you know, Mr. Speaker, yes, confidence. Yes, and I'll come to that in a few minutes. But you know, Mr. Speaker, when we add the two amounts together, so today really it is 32.6 million and 3.3, so we are dealing with 36.9 million. When we add both of them together from the First National Bank. Mr. Speaker, no matter what the Prime Minister said, and I must be getting a little slow in my mind. Things I must be slowing down, Mr. Speaker, so you have to forgive me. I can't understand the nature of that transaction for that 3.3 million, which the National Bank agreed to finance. I can't. And this has to impact on this 32.6 million that the National Bank is also providing to the government of St. Lucia. I'll tell you why. If I understand what the Minister of Finance said, and he has liberty in this debate, two sources. You can say, one, stand up on a point of order misleading the House. Alternatively, he can stand on a point of correction, correct me, and I may decide to give way. He said that a contract was given to Fresh Start to commence the wall at Tiroche. I'm not contesting whether a wall is needed at Tiroche or not. There is no doubt that that area suffered immeasurably during Thomas and following heavy rains. So the question of physical infrastructure is not in dispute, the need for it. But the Prime Minister, Minister of Finance says that Fresh Start got a contract to do it. They started to do it. And then the issue of payment came up, and the government decided to secure a loan to pay them for what they had done. First, how did they get the contract to build the wall? What were the assessments made? What are the bill of quantities in relation to that wall? And thirdly, how is it that the government of St. Lucia, after entering into presumably contractual arrangements, and it had to be a direct purchase, then after all those arrangements are in place, you then come back and say, I am borrowing $3.3 million to pay for that contract.
Honourable Member.
Yes. You want me to sit down while you explain?
Honorable Member, I think you're now attempting to reopen a debate that we have debated.
I can understand your anxiety, Mr. Speaker. Believe you me.
And I think I was just trying to run through to get the exact section, and I think that what you're doing, to me, is contrary to our standing orders, because you're reopening a debate that we've closed.
You know me, Mr. Speaker. I will abide by your ruling. And I know you know what I'm getting at. But having said to you that I'll abide by your ruling, the Leader of the Opposition, in my view, has to write to the Director of Audit to do an audit of this water. An audit has to be done of this wall. Now I return, Mr. Speaker, to your 32.6 million resolution. Mr. Speaker, whether we like it or not, the time has come for us to seriously begin the process of restructuring our debt. As the Leader of the Opposition has pointed out, it is clear that on the regional government securities market, the appetite for St. Lucian paper, for St. Lucian instruments, is a very weak one. There's no appetite for instruments. And the danger we now face is this, as I think the Minister of Finance conceded, you then have to turn inwards into your domestic space to borrow from the domestic banks to deal with the situation. You don't have much time to do that. And the time has really come for some serious soul searching to be done, because St. Lucia has in fact reached its limit, I believe, on the regional government securities market. So to that extent, the Leader of the Opposition is absolutely correct that this is severely crowding out resources to the domestic sector, and if I might add, at a very unusual rate, a generous rate of interest. But in conclusion, while I say bravo to the First National Bank for taking the risk to make available that sum of money and to be such a heavy financier of the government of St. Lucia in this financial year, all I will say, Mr. Speaker, it is interesting that the First National Bank has gone where others fear to tread. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.